Chapter 5 Knickers. He was awake as soon as the morning's light seeped through the rough canvas, stretching limbs carefully, moving old bones about, and listening to the protesting joints popping. Severus slowly sat up and rubbed sleep from his eyes. His menacing cat had left him in the night, and it was certain that some succulent field mouse or baby rabbit had met a gory doom. With a tired sigh, he acknowledged it was best to find a breakfast of his own, preferably one without a tail. Severus trudged with mixed anticipation to Hermione's flat. They hadn't exactly made proper arrangements the night before. There hadn't yet been a division of boundaries, no agreement over who got the first shower and who did the washing up. Severus was betting he'd get stuck with the washing up. Still, he didn't really feel like fighting over it. Normalcy was what he wanted. Perfectly boring, tea and toast normalcy. No fights, no dramatic drama. His wife could fritter away her own life however she pleased, as long as Severus could get a quiet cuppa and a paper each morning. Hell, he'd be willing to trade away his soul for that. Well, maybe not his soul, but someone's soul certainly. In the hallway he could hear the sound of the shower running. Well, that answered that question. Decision made for him, Severus set about scavenging for food. Hermione was telling off her hair when she was alerted to the fact that she wasn't alone. She reached out for a wand before blatantly realizing it was probably just Severus. Just Severus. Hermione snorted. Her ex-potion professor was in her house. Never mind the fact that they were married on paper. He had been her teacher in school and a man who, in her mind, fit there. She could imagine Severus Snape in the Hogwarts dungeons. She could see him perfectly in battle, casting silent spells faster than she could manage to utter them. He fit there too. And if she applied just a little bit of imagination, she could picture Severus Snape sitting in Azkaban. That also fit. But he did not belong in her home. It was too incongruous. It did not fit. Hermione darted from the bathroom to her bedroom and dressed hastily. When she emerged, it was to find Severus in her kitchen, barefoot and tending to a savory-smelling egg fry-up and fresh coffee. It smelled divine. It also looked like there was enough to share. "May I?" she asked, pulling down the plates from the cupboard. Severus nodded and turned off the hob. "We had all this in the house?" Hermione wrinkled her forehead, and Severus plated their food. "I didn't think we did." "The sausage I borrowed from Mr. McCorkle, but otherwise it came from your pantry. You did actually have some food on hand other than Merlin's Munchos. For your acumen in potions, I'm rather surprised you don't cook." "I cook?" She didn't. Not really. But Hermione felt shamed into defending herself. "I just don't have anyone to cook for. It hardly seems worth it to do up a meal just for myself." There wasn't any point in cooking for Ron either. Every dish served was critiqued against what Molly Weasley would serve. "I see. Perhaps we can take turns cooking for each other." Hermione readily agreed to the offer. "Who is—" "Your neighbor." "Oh." Hermione ate silently. It was good. Really good. She tried to think of the last time she had a hot, fresh breakfast. It had been a while. When she and Ron were together, Hermione never wanted to wake up at the Burrow, despite Molly's cooking. A walk of shame in front of a household of Weasley boys was beyond her dignity to endure. Severus straightened his back with a small groan, and Hermione could hear the vertebrae popping from across the table. "You didn't sleep well?" He glared at her. "I've had jail cells more comfortable than that tent. Those camp beds could be classified as cruel and unusual." "Oh," she said quietly. He probably didn't want suggestions from her, certainly not when it might remind him of her hand waving in the air as a young student, with all the answers. But he looked quite pained. And Hermione had more than enough experience with that bloody tent to empathize wholly. "Try Lactoloctus. For some reason, it seems to work better than the standard cushioning charms." "I didn't know you cared so much for my welfare," he said with a slight grin, which Hermione understood was his way of showing gratitude. "If it keeps you from being a grump in the mornings." "I doubt anything can do that." She glanced at the time and hurried to finish, then pulled her wallet from her robes. Hermione plunked onto the table what she usually spent for groceries, then doubled it. Despite being in prison for the last 6 years, Severus would probably know better what to buy than she would. "Would you mind going to the groceries today? There's a store 2 blocks to the east." When Severus agreed, she took a parting sip of coffee and tidied her dish. Hermione stopped herself before she dashed out the door. "Thank you for breakfast. It was really lovely. That was nice. Do you think we could do it again?" "You mean eat?" "No. I mean not snip at each other. You know, behave like adults." "I think I could do that." He eyed her suspiciously. Younger women were prone to fits of drama. They were gossips and blabbermouths, self-centered, self-serving, and tickle-headed. They got on his wick first thing in the morning. But so were middle-aged and elderly women, come to think of it. And it wasn't just first thing in the morning, either. It wasn't likely that the peace would last. The charade would end sometime. "Let's take it a day at a time," Severus cautioned as her frizzy head disappeared from the doorway.